guys, and welcome back to another episode of Lost Bits right here on TetraBitGaming, the series where we explore the scrapped, unused, and unseen content in video games. So if you've been around the channel for a while, you'll know that Super Mario Maker is one of my favorite games of all time. And with Super Mario Maker 2 releasing today, what better time to dive into this Wii U flagship title? Wieczna pamięć, old friend. And to help out today, joining me is one of my favorite Super Mario Maker YouTubers and good friend, DGR Dave.
Hey Tetra, thank you so much for having me on today's show. I hope you're as ready as I am to unpack some spicy, unused Mario Maker content.
As always guys, if at any point you do enjoy this video, go ahead and smash that like button as it really helps us out a lot. And with all of that said, go dust off your Wii U and gamepad, it's time to find some lost bits. Alright, so to start things off, let's go over some of the changes and things that were removed from the earlier pre-release versions of Super Mario Maker. First up is the overall aesthetic of the original Super Mario Bros. Theme. In earlier builds that were shown off, the background had a way different, almost grid-like style, and the shading was much heavier on basically every object. Like here, let's compare the question blocks and the ground tiles between both versions. If I'm being honest, I like the shading and style of the scrapped version way more than the final used one. Like, I don't know, I think it just looks more unique, and I think it's just more appealing, I guess. I suppose the change was ultimately made to make the style look more akin to the original NES game to be more faithful to it. From the earlier builds, we can also see that both the block and spring icons were altered. Also, in the trailer from E3 2014, we could see that the timer once allowed up to 999 seconds. Now I know a lot of people disagree with me and think that more time would make soft locks that much worse. I still always wished that Super Mario Maker would allow for longer time limits than 500. You'll also notice that the early build had the word time like in the original Super Mario Bros. This was ultimately changed to having the little clock icon that we see in the final release.
In the early build of Super Mario Maker that was shown off in 2014's E3, there was also a completely different and ultimately unused congratulations screen for completing a stage. As you can see, a congratulations message would appear along with 5 pairs of clapping hands from Mario Paint, confetti, streamers, and the whole 9 yards. While the clapping hands from New Super Mario Bros. U style did make it into the final release when completing a set course in Course Bot, the 8-bit style goes completely unused.
During a pre-release gameplay video on the Kinda Funny Games channel, interestingly, and I assume mistakenly, a dummy placeholder icon could be seen for a moment on the Course Bot screen. After scrolling down and back up, the glitch had apparently corrected itself though. Needless to say, this placeholder graphic wasn't meant to be seen, and it obviously goes unused in the final release. Next up is the original design of everyone's favorite Mario style, Weird Mario. Before looking like, well, this, in E3 of 2014, Weird Mario was just small Mario's normal sprites, just stretched vertically like in a bad Microsoft Paint webcomic. Honestly, not sure which one is worse. And now let's move on to the final build of the game, which surprisingly has a lot left out from it. First, some cut Mario costumes that were to be used in the original Super Mario Bros. Style. Before the game was patched, several costume names could be found amongst the rest, which suggested that these were also planned to be added at one point. And some, like the EGAD and Baby Mario costumes, were indeed added. However, there are 5 costumes that never saw the light of day. These include a Golden Retriever costume, Mario Us or Mario US, probably Mario in the style of Super Mario Bros. 2, as in Japan it's known as Super Mario USA. Muncher, probably just a costume of the enemy of the same name, Tetris, likely a single or multiple Tetraminos, and finally the Windows logo. Now I can only assume that last one was removed due to licensing issues, but for the rest, it's hard to say why they weren't added. And to confirm my thoughts on the Mario US costume, several sound effects associated with it remain in the game, and I believe are used by other characters from Super Mario 2 such as Birdo and Shy Guy.
And while we're on the topic of cut costumes, placeholder files in the game suggest that several other enemies were also scrapped, at least in some styles anyway. For example, placing a bullet bill directly instead of just the bullet bill cannon, Karibo-shu Goombas in the new Super Mario Bros. U style, and even the Angry Sun in the Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and new Super Mario Bros. U styles. As you know, although the Angry Sun didn't ever make it into this game, it is making its debut in Super Mario Maker 2, which I'm equally as excited and terrified about. There's also a file titled Super Konoha for the Super Mario Bros. U style. This is the Japanese name for the Super Leaf, which looks like it too was planned to make an appearance in this style. In the final release, however, the propeller mushroom is used instead, and the Super Leaf was likely removed due to redundancy.
Next up, Super Mario Maker has some unused bits of audio. The first set of these are all audio tracks from the Gnat Attack minigame. While all of these files are used in the mode, since it only has a 30-second time limit, all of the songs past the 30-second mark are never normally heard. I'll give you a quick sample of each track to give you a taste of what you've been missing. And the other unused audio file is for the Arcade Bunny Rabbit costume that was added to the game. The appeal sound effect heard by pressing up while playing was altered from this high-pitched gibberish to this lower-pitched gibberish. No clue why this was changed, but that's certainly a much weirder voice for a rabbit. Super Mario Maker also apparently has 2 more unused object sizes. In the final game, objects can either be normal or 100% sized, or 200% sized when combined with the mushroom. Cut from the game, however, are 150% and 300% size variants. This is shown off very well by SMB123W64GB over on Twitter with his picture featuring Bowser in each of the size variants. I can only assume the other sizes were removed to keep the sizing simple with just the 2 variations.
I certainly hope you guys are ready for some unused Super Mario Maker graphics because boy, there is a lot. Prepare to get bombarded. First, an item that has an unused variant in each of the 4 styles is the pink coin. As you can see here, each of the unused pink coin sprites are just regular coins recolored pink. These were obviously early versions of the pink coins, which we saw added to the game in a later update, and the change was definitely good here, as it made the pink coins more unique than just recolored regular coins.
Now, starting chronologically with the original Super Mario Bros., first is a really cool unused version of the clown cart, which would have been seen after Mario grabbed a big mushroom. It's weird because so far we've seen some changes to the game made the sprites more unique and some less. There's also a sprite of a teardrop found amongst the unused clown car sprites, suggesting that it would have maybe been possible to make it cry at some point. In any case, I definitely think the Mario-styled clown car is way more interesting and unique than just slapping a mustache on it. And speaking of just slapping mustaches on things, that's also what they did with the sprites of Peach and Luigi riding on Bowser and Bowser Jr. respectively. The sprites here without the stashes are left unused. Then we have a slightly altered sprite of the Cannonball Luigi, an unused Mario-style underground Goomba with a slightly different mustache, as well as a completely different unused style of the Stretch enemies. Here, both the enemies and the Mario masks they wear were entirely altered. There's also a sprite of the Big Steely from Super Mario World, which was seemingly entirely cut from this game.
Next, we have some unused tile sprites of the bridges seen at the end of Castle Courses. It looks like at first the developers just tried to recolor these tiles from the original sprites from the Super Mario Bros. Style, before ultimately updating it to a newer design.
There's also an unused graphic of Fire Mario that was apparently intended to be used for ground pounding before I guess the move was taken out from the Super Mario Bros. Style to keep it faithful to the original. Next is this sprite of Weird Mario titled Appeal, suggesting that it was apparently supposed to be used as the pose when pressing up, much like the other amiibo costumes. Then there's a slightly altered color version of the modern colored 8-bit Mario costume. I wouldn't blame you if you thought they were the exact same thing at first glance. And lastly, for the original Super Mario Bros. Theme is an unused sprite of some smaller Toad. No idea if this was meant to be a design change or just a different style, but either way, it was scrapped.
And now on to Super Mario Bros. 3. Just like with the previous style, we again see different versions of both the stretch enemies as well as the bridge tiles from the castle levels. I'm not sure about you, Tetra, but I'm starting to see a pattern here. Then again, we also see some unused sprites of Mario seemingly sliding down a slope. Well, since slopes were never added and the files are named hip drop, you can either believe that ground pounding was also meant to be seen in this style, or that slopes were once planned to be added to the game. Go ahead and take your pick, but what's even more interesting are these sprites which carry the name Wall Kick. This further suggests that maybe at one point the entire moveset from New Super Mario Bros. U would carry over between all of the styles. Now that's really cool to sit back and think about, but it also would have taken away from the uniqueness of each style as well.
Moving on to Super Mario World, and guess what? Yet again are some early unused designs for both Stretch and the Castle Bridge tiles. Who would have thought? Honestly, I'm a big fan of the original Stretch design though. As a bit of a change of pace, here there are also slightly different unused sprites for the clown car when it's hurt with basically just simpler shading. Then there's an unused tile for what appears to be an icon for the floating platforms from Lemmy's castle in Super Mario World, and also there are some weird red silhouette sprites of what looks like Mario and his cape. No idea what these could have been used for except for being probably temporary placeholders or something. And yet again, there's a sprite titled Hip Drop in this style as well, only further supporting the notion we discussed earlier. If you're mod savvy at all, some mods like this one made by Willy Maker adds the ground pound and wall kick moves into the other styles in the game. This essentially lets us see what these moves would have looked like in action had they been left in the game.
Now with New Super Mario Bros. U, there aren't any unused sprites of ground pounding or wall kicking, and that's because those actions are actually used in this style.
Now for a saucy fun fact. Did you know all the objects except for Mario, Yoshi, Bowser, and Bowser Jr. in the new Super Mario Bros. U style are actually 2D despite looking like they're 3D models? Yep, this effect is actually just done by incorporating what's called a bump or normal map with these 2D sprites. These essentially create the illusion of three-dimensional depth and texture on the surface of an object by simulating how light would bounce and create shadows with this new shaping. Pretty cool party trick, Nintendo.
Oddly enough, sprites which would have made up this death animation for the Hammer Bros go completely unused. In the final version, after getting stomped on, they kind of just curl up and spin off the screen instead.
Once again, there is an unused Castle Bridge tile, only this time it's the same one as the Super Mario Bros. Version. I don't think this was ever intended to be the bridge tile, so it was probably just a placeholder until the newer assets were added.
Next, we have even more unused images, this time some basic sample placeholder images in the original Super Mario Bros. Style featuring just the sky, some clouds, and hills, as well as the word sample slapped right on there. This one image is basically the same as the dummy one we discussed earlier, so they likely served a very similar purpose.
Furthermore, there's also a debug font that goes normally unused, and lastly an image of a drawing featuring Nikki from the 3DS classic Swap Notes. And hey, there's that envelope lad again, which makes me think of that one unused Miiverse placeholder image post from Yoshi's Woolly World. Aside from Nikki being in the game as a costume, there's no other indication of any Swap Note features, so it's pretty weird that this image is found here. And apparently the game's code even references this image in some sort of initialization sequence when you first get into the core spot when you start the game. The file itself dates back to 2012, around 3 years before Super Mario Maker was released, so my best guess is that it was just thrown in here as a placeholder. Alright, and for the last stop, Super Mario Maker has an absolute plethora of unused files. From Splatoon? I just made a Splatoon Lost Bits video, and many of you guys told me about these, but I wanted to save them for this video.
Man, that's crazy to think that these files are in here. There's a bunch of Splatoon gear here, ranging from shirts and headwear to even weapons. Like, there's even the unused warrior headdress and early icon for the stealth goggles you mentioned in your Splatoon video.
There are way too many items to go through individually, so I'll quickly just throw them up on screen so you can see all the items left over in this game. And not only are they unused here, but many are also either unused in Splatoon as well, or these are some earlier versions of the ones that are used. Like the Splatter Shot, Splat Charger, and Splat Roller all look a lot less polished than the final version seen in Splatoon.
There are also early versions of several special and sub-weapons from Splatoon 2, some of which completely changed. There's the Suction Bomb, which changed completely, the Burst Bomb, Splat Bomb, Squid Beacon, which used to look like a flag, the Disruptor, which looked like some sort of smoke grenade, the Splash Wall, Sprinkler, Bubbler, Inkzooka, Ink Strike, and lastly, the Big Laser, which is believed to be a precursor to what would eventually become the Killer Whale. Wow, that's a lot of changes.
And last up, there's an unused Splatoon placeholder icon which just reads WPN, and this would have been used for any of the weapons that didn't have any icons yet. Splatoon and Super Mario Maker released within only a few months of each other, so I would think that both development teams exchanged or shared assets during development, and these were just forgotten to be deleted. I really can't think of another reason these would be left in, but who knows? Maybe at one point there would have been a Splatoon Maker skin or something. And with that concludes this Lost Bits video on Super Mario Maker, and I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you did, be sure to slap a like down below and let me know what other games you would like to see me cover on Lost Bits in the future. And of course, a very special thank you to my friend DGR Dave for joining me. If you like Mario Maker and haven't yet, be sure to check out his channel and his awesome videos. And if you enjoyed this Lost Bit, be sure to check out the rest of them by clicking on the card right here. And if you would like to stay up to date with me and the channel, be sure to subscribe here, as well as swing by my Twitter and other social media things, which will all be linked in the description below. But as always guys, thank you all so much for watching today and for all of your amazing support, and I will see you in a bit.